Have you ever felt so exhausted and drained that you're left questioning if you're burning out? Hi, I'm Flic Taylor, and my passion for burnout and self-care came about when I became a mental health writer who'd lost her mental health to extreme burnout. I know, the irony is not lost on me. Join me as I host Everyday Burnout Conversations, the honest podcast that shares the stories of others from all walks of life as they recover from, manage and avoid burnout by prioritising their mental health and well-being. Expect to hear fascinating conversations, plus positive and actionable tips and tricks that can help you make the simple life changes your mental health will thank you for. Episodes will be delightfully wrapped up in some epic truths and great humour. So, enjoy! Thank you so much for joining me today and coming back to listen to another Everyday Burnout Conversation. I had a lot of fun recording this brilliant chat with today's guest. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Maddy Shine. Maddy is a coach who helps ambitious female entrepreneurs get more sales by increasing their visibility. And known as the SEO and Visibility Queen, she's helped hundreds of clients get to page one of Google as she teaches the no-fluff strategy that focus on business growth. Now, in 2020, she launched the High Vis podcast and used lockdown to help thousands of entrepreneurs with her group courses and her Visibiliyay members community, which is currently open for enrolment. Based in London, Maddy is easily spotted by her ever-changing hair and large and colourful earrings. She looks mighty fabulous. Maddy enjoys entertaining and motivating people daily on Instagram. Oh, and here's a fun fact. Sandi Toksvig once called her a clever girl, something she cherishes daily. Too bloody right, Maddy. Now, whether you're listening to this relaxing with a cup of tea, perhaps you're on a walk, doing the dishes, or, I don't know, waiting for a train, I really hope you enjoyed this conversation with Maddy as much as I did. Enjoy! Okay then, Maddy. Well, it's just so lovely to have you here today. And, you know, your Instagram posts, it's your stories that really I just adore because they're just so authentic and real and a real lift, you know, like you always you just present yourself. Here you are, what you see is what you get, but then here's some gold. I'm just going to pop this in here as well. And they're amazing. And so I'm really interested because you've mentioned on your Instagram that you've definitely had a brush with burnout. And I'd love to talk about that. So what was your brush with burnout, my darling?
Well, thank you so much, Flic. It's wonderful to be here and to have this conversation. I think that the more people who've had these kind of conversations, the better. I am a big fan, like you say, of being real. I used to so shy away from that word authentic for so many years because it was very much, oh, I'm authentic, but I also happen to be on a beach with a big hat. And I was like, yeah, but is it relatable though? I don't really feel like it is. And I was like, good for you if you're on a beach, but you know, my life doesn't look like that right now. It has done at certain points, but more on that in a bit. So basically, I've had more than a brush with burnout. Okay. I have burned out for sure at several different points in my life. And each time, I basically have obviously had like the toolkit, if you like, from whenever it happens. I'm like, oh, here we go. And then we sort of pull back. So earlier and earlier, I've been able to see the signs, put the solutions in place, and basically stop it happening. So essentially, the first brush I would say would be way back in 2010. I mean, I say way back, but it does kind of feel like 2 years ago, even though it was almost 12 years ago now, which is crazy. But yeah, back in 2010, I had a day job. I had a marketing 9-to-5 day job back in those days, and I was a proper London party girl. I absolutely just loved life. I was also massively in debt. I was going out with someone who was traveling and they were having a whale of a time, but I was stuck in London. I was like, I don't really care that you're on one of the Himalayas right now. Like I had a family bereavement and I lost my job.
Okay.
And basically, so I had to, because of the debt situation, I had to move out of my flat that I was sharing with a dear friend of mine. And essentially I had no idea, like, I was like, well, this is it. Like, I'm only, I don't know, 25, 26 at the time. I was like, I'm exhausted. Like, this isn't, something's got to give here. And people were making suggestions. And I was like, I'm not really hearing you. I'm not really like knowing what to do. So anyway, the boyfriend came back from traveling and I got a redundancy check. And I said, you know what? I don't know what else I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do what you just did. I think I'm going to go traveling, because I never went traveling, you see. So I, back in my gap year or anything like that, I never did that. And so I thought, yeah, okay, I'll do that. So he went, oh, phew, because I was wondering how to tell you I'm going back. I was like, oh, phew, right. Okay, so we went traveling together, but, and we went for 6 months to India.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I had been to India for a couple of weeks, of course, to see him the previous winter, but it was nothing like obviously actually living there. And it was amazing. I hadn't realized just how burned out I was. This was before the smartphones, really. This was before any of that. And so it was great just to basically be on the beach most of the time, drinking cheap gin. I was just like, this is great. But I also met a meditation teaching whilst I was in Goa. And then basically that really helped. So I started doing all these meditation workshops. And I'd never really been into meditation before at all. But I really, really got into it. And so they have a center in Goa. So then I started going back for 5 years in a row. I did the whole winter in India thing.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, it completely changed how I lived my life.
Oh my God.
It was real. I was like, this is what I do now. This is brilliant. So I used to come back to London sometimes in between, and sometimes I would go somewhere else. So sometimes I went to Southeast Asia. In that time, I also got married to that guy, and then I also got divorced. I mean, it all really, like, it all happened in those 5 years. It really did.
Lifestones, milestones. Yeah,
exactly. But so like all this stuff was happening, and then also I was thinking, well, I really want to continue traveling. Like, how am I going to do this without burning out again? Because the side hustle game is real, and there were lots and lots of digital nomads out on the road as we met them, and it was all very exciting. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but then I actually started properly freelancing as a copywriter, web designer. Basically, I'm self-taught, and of course my marketing experience came in handy and all that kind of thing. So really that's kind of how it all started to happen. But then I was living in Devon. I was married. This is 2014 now. And I was married. I was living in Devon. We were living, oh my goodness, this manor house belonged to the Duke and Duchess of Somerset. I mean, as you do, right? I know, it's wild. And there were 10 bedrooms and a ballroom and a huge kitchen. I mean, it was just, this house was like in that Sensibility film with Emma Thompson and stuff like that, so it was all very much, that kind of vibe. It was lovely. But I was like, how have I got here? Like, this is, no, I need to go back to London. That's where my calling has always been. I love London. I'm from Devon, but yeah. Anyway, so I went back to London, was working there, but I was doing the day job and doing my marketing freelancing in the evenings and weekends. And I was subletting a spare bedroom off a friend. And basically my diet was like crisp satsumas and red wine. Like, it was just...
Yeah. No, on that diet, my love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So then I realized, like, burnout, like, I thought I had knew burnout back in 2010, but burnout really hit me in 2014. And actually I started to get panic attacks. And I had one so bad one day that I had to call an ambulance out because I was really worried that genuinely something was happening and I was on my own. So I remember just sitting in Whipps Cross A&E, just thinking, yeah, this isn't really what I want to be doing with my life. Like, something's got to give. So I went back to India again for that winter, and I thought, right, out in India, I feel great. Back in London, I don't feel so great. But the answer isn't to stay in India. The answer is what's great about my life in India that I can carry on this kind of lifestyle choices back in England. And one of them was to get divorced. So that was great. That was immediately much less stressful because it wasn't the most empowering relationship to be in. And the other thing was to give up my day job. And I never went back to, touch wood, I haven't gone back to a day job since. So March 2015, it's surprising how much more energy you have when you don't have a lot of stress in your life. It's amazing.
It's huge. And just the fact that you said at the beginning, you didn't realize how burnt out you were until you stopped. And I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
It's so true. You kind of, say, oh, I'm worn down. It's almost like you bargain with yourself and you're telling yourself, oh, you're fine. You keep going. Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, because everyone else is. Yeah, everyone else is keeping going. Why are you so special? Everyone else can cope. Why can't you? You're a failure. That's the sort of what the inner voices tell you, right? And then if you start to broach the subject with anyone, everyone else is like, oh, I thought everyone else was okay, and I thought I was shit, Sorry for not to swear.
Oh, no. It's all good. Okay. No, it's so true, Maddy. That's exactly what I did. And it's those moments, like you said in Whip's Cross, where you're kind of like, oh, what's happening? Like, I'm too young to have all these issues. And like, I was at the point when I was like to my doctor, hey, infected nail bed and heart attack. And she's like, no, love, burnout, extreme, but it's crazy. People, I'm sure you're the same when people say, at what point did you realize you were burnt out? Week 3 of lying in bed crying. Like,
yeah. The incredible amount of snot that comes out onto the duvet. It's quite a visual, isn't it? Sorry, but
do I wipe it with tissues or Malteser bags? I don't know. I'm just going to do both. It's so true, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and I can only laugh about it now because I've been there so much. And then the thing is, so 2015, I was putting everything into the business. And everything was great. I moved it back in with my parents, where I hadn't lived for God knows how long, 15 years or so. And so then I skipped forward a couple of years and I moved to Bristol for the summer. And I thought, right, this is it. I went to uni in Bristol, so I thought I've got my gang of friends, and also I had a gang of friends from traveling. I thought, right, here we are. This is where I'm supposed to be, because I couldn't really see how I could afford to live in London on my own. That was what it was. So I moved into this beautiful community. Like my friends have got this huge self-build kind of complex in the centre of Bristol. So I moved in there. It's absolutely amazing. And then I could really see very quickly, actually, this is not the place for me, but I didn't know what the solution was. And so all these things suddenly started to happen. I quadrupled the turnover in my business from the previous year. I suddenly had a team of 4 people. I became an auntie for the first time. Adorable, to my obsession, my niece Grace.
I see her on Instagram. She's very cute.
She's adorable, as is her now baby sister Hannah, who's just born this year. And then basically all these, and that was it. And then I had a car accident. A lorry crashed into me on the motorway, and so my car was written off. And all these things just all happened very, very quickly. And I was just like, oh my God, have I reached burnout again? Like, this cannot be. Like, I was basically overcommitting, people pleasing, putting everyone before myself. And I was like, I have no boundaries. Like, what happened to the boundaries? They're like in thin air, like, this is crazy, absolutely crazy. And I was like, it's because we have all been shown, particularly as women, particularly as English women, to put ourselves last. Because we should get our sense of well-being and peace from everybody else being at peace and being happy. But guess what? No one's ever happy all the same time. It doesn't happen, unfortunately.
Exactly.
It's exhausting.
Oh.
So basically, ever since then, I think, touch wood again, but I think I've been able to pull back if I even get anywhere near that close again. So I now have sort of like a list of things that I do that basically stop me from getting into such a bad place, essentially. Yeah.
Amazing. And you share a lot of these strategies on your social media, which I think are fantastic. And I'd love you to talk some more about those, because honestly, the one where you were like, I delete the app at the weekend. I was like, huh? Really? That's cool. Like simple things, but mind blowing. So I'd love you to talk about those.
Of course. I mean, honestly, I love talking about them. So one of them is to delete my social media apps off my phone at the weekend. And it's quite a recent thing. I sort of go through phases, but I once spoke to someone who I admire in my industry, and she said, yeah, I never have emails on my phone. And I was like, oh my God, I hate checking emails on my phone. So now I don't have my work emails on my phone ever. I only have my personal emails. So they're usually the shopping ones, let's face it. But yeah, it's very, very important to me now to have boundaries in place. And some people don't like it, and particularly because I host social media communities, I host communities, they're on social media, I've got my own Facebook groups. No one's actually come out right and said, where are you? But I know that people are so used to everyone being available so much all the time that it can only start with me to put those boundaries in place. Yeah. So even of an evening, I'll be far less likely to respond on social media. I might address answer the occasional Instagram DM, maybe. But honestly, like, it's so, why are we just going along with it just because everyone else is, Like, if I miss out on an inquiry because I wasn't available on a Saturday night, they're not going to be my ideal client. That's just how it is,
No.
It's very important to me. So that's number one. So definitely setting the boundaries just with my time on my phone.
Okay.
Another one is to actually have a switch off time at the end of every day. So rather than just merging work into Netflix, into dinner, back to work, into bed.
So easy to do.
I am still working on the screen time because I still would like to not watch Netflix right up until the point I go to sleep. But
that's a really good.
Yeah, but I live on my own and it's my company. What are you trying to do? Take it away from me, Yeah. Like, I sort of get a bit defensive, so I'm just sort of relaxing with that a moment. Yeah. But definitely with the work stuff, I now have like a little bit of a cushion, so I don't just go from work to dinner now. I just sort of have a work and then a bit of a potter and then make dinner. Right. So just even that alone is such a small little thing, and yet we don't do it because we're like, no, must be productive right up until the last moment, And I think it's just so important to me, because there's no I watch this, so I'm a big fan of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, rest in peace, and there's a brilliant Oscar, is it either Oscar nominated or Oscar winning documentary about her that came out a couple of years ago, and highly recommend it. It's called RBG.
Okay.
And basically she was talking about how her husband used to have to come down to her office and like physically remove her to stop her working. And I was like, well, I don't have a partner, like who's going to physically remove me? And I thought, oh yeah, I'm a workaholic too, and that's absolutely great, but what? No, I don't want to do that. I have a very strong work ethic. I always will do. I know that. But it's also up to me to be committed to my own self, to take care of myself.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I even went and bubbled with my parents at the beginning of this year, from Christmas to the end of February. It was obviously like a really horrible lockdown, particularly that part. And so it was great. So I went out and stayed with my parents for a couple of months out in Oxfordshire. And it was, obviously they were sort of going, do you want to come for dinner? And I was like, I could see myself kind of going back into that, oh no, I'm just working, because I almost wanted to prove to them, like, look how hard I work. And they were like, we can see you on social media, darling. We can see what you're doing. We can, we know how hard you work. You don't have to prove anything.
I still do that with my parents. I'm like, I'm 44. Why am I still saying, you know what? I did really well with this. Like, what are you doing this for?
Right?
Yes.
Right? And I was like, I'm 38, right? And I was like, at what point does this stop? Because mum and dad are very happy with me and, my achievements. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's true. I'm not 12 anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So having those kind of boundaries on my time there as well has certainly started to help. Another one is actually from our very own Sally, so who I know you've had on this podcast, a very dear friend of mine. I should have worn the earrings today that she gave me. She gave me these massive heart earrings that says myself. Oh, it's too cute. She gave them to me for Galentine's Day this year, actually.
Oh, Sally.
I know. So yeah, just showing off, but just name dropping, don't mind me. So basically I had a consultation with her last year. And she was showing me, she was like, Maddy, you don't have enough pleasure in your life. And I was like, oh, hello. She goes, no, not necessarily even a sexual pleasure, like, just like actual enjoyment. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. So I have a golden drinks trolley called Penelope. Penelope. And on Penelope, there are lots of fairy lights, there are lots of sparkly things. She's basically like the drinks trolley version of me, like lots of sparkly things, very, very colourful, and lots of gin. So basically, I will have a gin and tonic of an evening. I'll light the candles, I'll put the fairy lights on, and it'll be sort of like my unwind, and it's so good. So good to do it. And that reminds me, after this, I'll be going on to Etsy to buy some more candles. But like, it's so good. So things like that, things like bubble baths. I was like, I can't have bubble baths. What about the environment? What about, like, come on, Madeline, one bubble bath, it's going to be okay. Yeah. So my friend bought me this bath shelf. You can put the glass of wine in there. You can prop your Kindle in there. And so, having a bubble bath with the candles around, it's great. I've been living in house shares for so many years, and of course, I never felt like I'd have a bath there.
Yes, so true.
Now,
it's
living on my own.
Right, have a bath when you're in a house share, isn't it? And also, you're like, who cleaned it last?
Yeah, I don't want to have a bath and testicle tea. Thanks, no thanks. Sorry, Dad. I know you're going to be listening to this. So another one is, of course, how I mentioned earlier, the meditation workshops I used to do in Goa. So they have a lot of online stuff on YouTube. So I listen to those kind of meditation talks. I also listen to Alan Watts. I don't know whether you know him.
No.
Oh, he's brilliant. So he's no longer alive, hasn't been, I think he's been dead for about 40 years. I don't know what time is anymore. But check him out. So what they've done is they've taken his talks, I think he did like back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, and they put it to kind of soothing music on YouTube. And it's extremely relaxing to listen to, I find, and also really kind of uplifting at the same time. It's just very insightful. I enjoy his talks a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm going to check him out.
Yeah, Alan Watts. And then also I'm really into ASMR. Do you know about this?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Really?
Okay. This is your fight. This lights your fire.
Yeah. I love ASMR so much. And I came across, honestly, the internet is just everything. Last night, I came across this ASMR. Normally, it's just like spa treatments or, things like that. It's kind of pampering, and I love all that. But no, last night I found it was like this period drama ASMR, which I'd never even heard was a thing. I know. So it's basically this woman, this French woman, and she's getting you ready for the ball, and she's using all this kind of like makeup, like from back then, like hundreds of years ago, and like showing you how to make it, and like going through all like the dresses. I mean, it's a whole thing. And I was like, and it's got like millions of hits. And I was like, what is this? Like, stop the internet. I want to get off, but also I love it. Like,
yes,
it really decide.
Like, hang on a minute, I am there.
Yeah. Anyway, I fell asleep to it. It was brilliant. So
lovely.
Yeah. So like all these kinds of like proper self-care, like I used to think was so indulgent, so self-indulgent. And it was like, oh, who are you to like require this amount of require? What am I? I'm not an operating system. I'm like fleshy,
yourself, like spending the money on a nice candle when I was always, and I guess from traveling as well, like you're always kind of budgeting. You're like, well, why am I going to spend 20 quid when I can spend a quid? Actually it's telling yourself that you don't deserve it. It's putting that investment in yourself and that pleasure.
Absolutely. I just bought some, so I love makeup, and I love the whole creativity vibe of it. And I'm always like trying to hold back from buying more makeup, because makeup is the thing that if I have to travel somewhere, it comes with me. Whereas, of course, stuff from my home has to stay still, right? So I've realized that I'm still in that kind of mentality of, because I was traveling for so many years and I was sort of nomadic and I didn't really have a fixed home for a while, like it's all, so I'm like, okay, do I actually need this makeup or will it, so I'm getting a lot more clear with how I'm spending my money. So candles, for example, was something I never would buy. Because they don't, you can't travel with candles, you can't light them in most rentals and all this stuff. And so do you see what I mean? So it's all sort of like lots of
all these things that it's investing in yourself, but it's also, I guess, for the present moment. As opposed to kind of thinking ahead and yes, exactly. And even like going to Penelope and having your drink. It's the present moment. It's okay, you've done your work, did a good job, day's work. You don't need to tell your parents anymore like I did. I did really good, I did it. And you just sit and you get present and you have your drink and that's amazing.
No, it's important to me. It's important to me, and it's something that I definitely learn a lot more. And then also with all this solo time, I no longer feel guilty about the solo time as well. I used to be like, oh, I've got to fill it with being in contact with someone else or spending time with someone else. I used to hate my own company, hate it, because I thought that being alone was bad, because lonely is bad and you're a failure as a human and all this kind of stuff, like nobody loves you. That's not true. None of that is true. That's just what people want you to think. It's why it's only 60 quid to get married and thousands of pounds to get divorced. It's like, you've got to be with someone. Otherwise, who are you, right? So as part of that, though, it's also kind of structuring my time a little bit better so that when I do go and socialize or spend time with my family, who I am very close to, and, all my dear friends, particularly now that lockdown's easing, then it's sort of, I like having the sense of occasion of it, so I went out for dinner with my parents on Tuesday and I'm going out with a friend tonight and things like this. And I was like, 2 dinners out in 1 week? Who does she think she is? And it's just like, what? No one's thinking that. Do you know what? I went to Nobu, or as my mum calls it, Nobu. I don't know which one's correct.
Nobu. I saw the picture. I was like, oh, that looks so lovely.
Yeah, right. So last Thursday I went to Nobu and I was thinking, but it's not even anyone's birthday. And like, people will judge me if they found out I went to a super fancy restaurant for not even a good reason. And I thought, screw it, I look really nice in that jumpsuit. So I'm going to put that photo up so I do every Friday, I do a gratitude post on Instagram, which, as you've seen, Things I Love Fridays. And so I posted that. Everyone just went absolutely mental over that photo. Good for you, they were saying. And I was like, what? This is completely the opposite of what. So look what happens when I put myself first rather than last.
Absolutely. And when we're on Instagram, don't we love to see good things happening for good people? Like it just lifts you up. So to see things like that for your clients and your followers, like absolutely they're going to cheerlead you because you look fabulous, but you're shining from within. You're happy within, and it kind of inspires other people to do the same. As opposed to that whole kind of Instagram culture from a few years ago where it was all push and sell and pretend and,
very much into that, very, very much into the sharing. And also I want people, like, there's no point in kind of getting to the top of the mountain, so to speak, unless you genuinely are going to be there with some other people. Like, it's just like, come on, we can all do this together. Yeah. And yes, and I don't, some people are of the sort of mindset of, I'll get to the top of the mountain, then I'll turn around and tell you how to climb up. And I'm all respect to them, but I don't really want to do it like that. I want to do it like, let's all get to the top of the mountain together kind of thing. And that sounds a bit Insta wankery-ish, I know, but it's just so, I don't really know how else to say it without sounding like a motivational quote, because like, it's just completely my vibe. And I remember like back when I first got into like Instagram for work stuff, a few years ago, I was like, oh God, motivational quotes, who do they think they are? I know that person's only got 3p in their bank account, whatever. I didn't know that, but these are the stories we tell ourselves about people who sometimes are doing all this kind of stuff. And I didn't want to get into that boat. So that's when I started to be a lot more transparent. And obviously it's had a great effect. Yes, I share my SEO tips because that is actually what I do for my living.
Right.
But it's all about, like, in that, it's learning how to be more visible, learning how to show up as a woman, learning how to take up space, learning to not care quite so much about what people potentially are thinking about of you. Newsflash, I haven't been trolled in years. I have been trolled, but touch wood, I haven't been trolled in years. And I'd like to think that's because I sort of sweep up my followers into sort of even a positive thinking vibe, because that's not really realistic. It's sort of like we haven't got space for that. Come and enjoy yourself, or take your hatred somewhere else, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Because I know when I saw your Instagram post, and I can't remember the date, but it was obviously going back a few months ago, and you were saying that, like, you know, you've done, like, obviously the pandemic had happened, and obviously no one is saying like this is a gift, or, you know, we're not going down that road, but you'd said, wow, I've actually made some cash here. Like, I've actually been, and it was just so lovely to see that, because, you know, it gives you hope and inspiration. And it's so good to see good things happen to good people. And you kind of think, okay, well, you know, let's find the silver linings in this. Let's try and, you know, make things better. Let's try and find those, you know, inspiring things. So I can see why you haven't been trolled, because you share that, which inspires people. You also share the days when you're like, oh my God, I'm in bed. I'm worn out today. Here we are. Like, here's my hair. I don't care. Like, you're so real. So absolutely, I can see why I haven't been trolled. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh,
no, it's nice to sort. Honestly, I remember I was in the before times, as I call them, basically just before we went into lockdown last March 2020. I remember I was speaking at a conference, and someone came up to me afterwards and said, Maddy, I just had to introduce myself. I've been following you for quite some time. And my favourite stories that you do are the ones where you haven't got any makeup on and your hair is everywhere. So not only does my drinks trolley have a name, but my hair also has a name. It's Gladys. Yeah. So I don't know why I've got all old ladies in my life, but here we are.
I love it.
Fabulous older ladies. I think I'm just aspiring to be one of the fabulous older ladies. So basically this woman comes up and she goes, I just love Gladys. I just love you and Gladys, just like rocking out. And, you know, you're just very, very real. And I said, well, thank you. I'm very, very glad that that's, you know, how you, what you take away from it. I think that sometimes with, again, with Instagram, but indeed with anyone's business, whether it's, you know, you've come across them on Google or Facebook or things like this, then there is such a way of, you must only appear polished. And when I speak to my clients and members, they're like, but Maddy, you do it. You're like the exception to the rule. Everyone else, all the rest of us have to be polished. You don't have to be polished. And I said, why? Why is that? And it's because, I said, the only reason you think that is because I do it.
Yeah.
So I just show up, and sometimes it doesn't get very much engagement. Sometimes it does. And that's okay. So it's not, and the thing is, the reason if you don't have much engagement, it's not because you're bad at what you do. It's not because you're bad at creating. It's not because you're bad at hitting publish or anything. It's simply a learning experience. So you tweak it and try again next time. I remember, so I sometimes dance on my Instagram stories, and I haven't been doing quite so much over lockdown because it didn't feel authentic. So I do it, you know, I used to do it daily, but anyway, we're getting back into it now. And it's always to music from, you know, 20 years ago, because that's the music that I love.
Yeah.
Late 90s R&B, absolutely where it's at. Late 90s pop, late 70s I also love. I love the 70s. Basically anything like wedding disco, that's my vibe, right? Wedding disco music, absolutely brilliant. And so I danced that, and honestly, I just like go and like, you know, when I first started doing that, I was like, oh my God, I'm absolutely, everyone's just gonna be like, unfollow. People absolutely love it because I lip sync, and then people send in song requests. People just like, people kind of go, oh, I only follow you for the dancing. Great, good.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. Follow me for the dancing, and then tell your friends about the rest. fine. No problem.
You're putting good out into the world. Yes. Putting good out into the world, and I think the karma fairies, I think it comes back to you, you know.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. You're right. I think you know, all those kinds of quotes that we all like, again, going back to the motivational quotes, be the change you want to see in the world. I can't remember who said that, I am sorry, but I do think that there's quite a lot of truth to that. When you are thinking about what, you know, you can't really complain if you're not willing to do something about something, right? So, but that's like with anything. So, for example, I was on a client call the other day and they said, "Oh, Maddy, your foundation, what foundation are you wearing?" And I told them. And they said, "Oh, it just looks really, really good." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm really trying to buy more vegan makeup recently. So it's vegan." And they said, "Oh, are you vegan?" I said, "No." They said, "Oh, that's why you buy vegan makeup." And I said, "Because it's not a binary thing."
Yeah.
Not a binary thing. I'm trying to make lots of little changes in my life. So all my cleaning products, for example, are all eco. And my makeup is increasingly vegan, cruelty-free, you know, all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to buy from more zero waste shops, you know, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, buying soy candles rather than the other candles because they're better for the environment. All this, it all adds up in my book.
It does.
And that's also what I'm trying to sort of sweep people up in as well. Not so everyone will suddenly start going out and buy eco cleaner, but the point of it is like, people think there's like this all or nothing attitude. So again, going back to the burnout, it's like, oh, I'm not burnt out enough to say something, or I'm not tired enough to go and have a nap, or I'm not hungry enough to go and have a snack. And it's like, when is that enough? Who decided that level?
Why are we waiting to hit rock bottom to do something?
Yeah. Because guess what? There's always going to be a rock bottom, and it's going to be different every time you feel it. Trust me. Like, it's, you know.
It's so true. It's so true. Absolutely. These little changes, they all add up to the environment. Little changes all add up to keeping us prioritizing our health and staying healthy. And because it's only when you lose your health that you realize like how much you take it for granted. Like, oh my goodness, when it's gone, like, you know, nothing is working or functioning for you.
Yeah, exactly. Like my whole body would shut down back when I was going through it. And that's not fun because like it feels like, you know, you can't really like taste nice things, and you can't really like enjoy them because your body's rejecting everything, and your skin's bad and your hair's all weird. Like every part of you is like, and then of course your self-confidence has completely gone out the window. Right. And so again, it kind of like, that's why I like to talk about it in what I do, in what I, you know, for want of a better word, sell, because basically I see it as so inextricably linked. How we feel about ourselves, how we put ourselves out there, you know, is so closely tied with running our own businesses. Because
absolutely. And I think this is what I love about your work, because I think there's, you know, you help kind of a lot of female entrepreneurs, and we know we tread those paths, right? We know how you just put your heart and soul into it and you just go and you know, it's so exciting, but there comes a point where you just go, unless you're taking care of yourself, it's not sustainable. And I love what you do for other women out there. I mean, yes, it's your job, but it's so much more than that, Maddy. It really is. It's a movement, I think.
Thank you very much.
You have your community, don't you? Your Visibiliyay.
My Visibiliyay community, yes. So basically people pay a monthly fee to come and learn about different visibility topics. So I talk about different SEO things, like what on earth Google Analytics is, how to update your website. I talk about what to say on your website, but also I talk about different topics like, for example, we just had an amazing guest expert in to talk about courage and visibility and the patriarchy. And I was like, oh yeah, this is it. Right.
Unpack that one.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Because we have been taught as women to take up as little space as possible, to stay quiet, to not show up. So it's very, very linked to the whole visibility game. And so, you know, yes, okay, run your own business if you must, but be quiet about it, won't you? Don't be full of yourself. What? you know, what else are we going to be full of? What else are we going to be full of apart from ourselves? I think that it's also true, you know, you can't pour, like I think it was you and Sally were talking about the other day about the pouring from the empty cup thing. Why are we waiting until it's empty? Why are we waiting?
You can't pour from an empty cocktail shaker.
Yes, I did. I did say that. I did say that in my Instagram post. I was like, we're going to put a Maddy Shine vibe on this. Yeah. That's what we're going to do. I think it's also really important that in all of this, in all these big conversations, I love having them, but also I love also adding the light-hearted vibe. That does not mean it's to be taken less seriously. And I think for a long time, I was struggling with even taking myself seriously because I was like, I want to have fun. I like optimism. I like, you know, people used to say, are you like a Disney character? I'm like, no, I'm not. But here's my whole thing, right? And so for a while there, I did come across some resistance, particularly in the early days, where people were like almost treating me like this kind of social butterfly type person, and therefore not to be, you know, sort of flitting around and not really taken seriously. And I was like, that's not, you know, that's definitely not what's happening. Yes. You know, it's what was it? A client of mine said to me the other day, I'm like an espresso martini. So, you know, I was like, yes, I can't drink espresso martinis, but yes. So I think, but you know, like that's what all ties in together. So yeah, so I have just over 100 members in my community, female in my Visibiliyay, all female creative entrepreneurs, all running their own businesses. And it's absolutely wonderful. So we have the live trainings, we have lots of downloads and resources and all that kind of stuff. We also have live Q&A calls with me. So we have them all on Zoom, and it's super fun. I absolutely love it. It's a great community. I just love seeing what everyone's achieving and what they're getting up to. And, you know, whether it's big things that are happening for them or, you know, just simply continuing to show up and getting in the sales. You know, I just think that, that it's not binary. The success is not, you're not successful or you're not successful.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely. I think that's really important as well.
Absolutely. And I bet you have inspired a lot of those women, those members to, you know, you're taking away kind of that extra legwork. So, you know, they're able to then put that time into themselves so they can keep, you know.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. So they can crack on with mum life and all the other stuff that they're doing in their lives rather than spending time Googling how to be more productive. You know, I think that it's very interesting sort of just reflecting on, I literally just posted a reel about it before we recorded this, about how many times have you Googled how to be more productive and actually all you needed to do was take a rest, right? Even if it's just a sit down. Even if it's just a sit down, like it doesn't have to be
staring out of the window, like 10 minutes of quiet and staring out the window at a tree. Honestly, that's been a game changer for me. Who would have thought? Whereas I in the past would have been like, go, 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 go. Always.
I hear you completely. So back to the meditation workshops, I also go to them in Sweden in normal times. Yeah, they have a centre in Sweden as well. It's beautiful. And it's surrounded by nature. It's surrounded by trees and fields and lakes. It's amazing, right? Absolute paradise. But the thing is, I resisted going. I was like, no, I go to the Goa Centre. I don't go to the Sweden Centre. And my friends who go to both would be like, Maddy, you're really going to like the Sweden Centre if you did want to go. And I'm like, no, it's not really for me. I mean, what's there? A bunch of trees? Come on.
I don't need trees.
And then I started going. I was like, oh my God, I actually feel like I'm in a movie. Like this is the most beautiful place. And then do you know what? I did my dance videos on Instagram from the forest there. I did them from the lake. I did, you know, and it was just great. It was absolutely great. Can't wait to go back when we're allowed.
I know. I bet you're counting down the days for that. Yes.
It won't be this year, but maybe next year.
Oh, lovely. So is there anything in particular that you tell your members, clients, in regard, you must have people ask you, or you can tell, you can see, you're on the verge, you're dancing with burnout.
I can boundaries.
see it now. Boundaries.
They're like, oh, but I need to do all this before. It's a bit like, I call it like the wiggle before the loo. So, when you're like, I'll just send 10 emails, yes, but before I go to the loo.
Yes.
But people have that approach with their to-do list. So particularly if they're like, I've got so much to do and I'll just, do the wiggle. And then you're like, but this isn't your best self. And it's okay not to be your best self, but recognize that first, go and have a cup of tea, and then just do one thing on your to-do list. Rather than I must do all 10 and then go over that 10 and think about 10 more. Otherwise, I haven't achieved anything today. So that's where I tend to recommend people start. If they're sort of going, oh, yeah, that if this resonates with you, then definitely try that tip for sure. But also the things that I've been starting to do, so dedicating more time to yourself. And people are like, I can't do that, because I'm not a mother. I appreciate that. I live on my own, so I haven't got anyone to sort of consider in the home. However, I also feel like with that comes the pressure to go out and be doing things.
I was going to say, yes, absolutely, Maddy, absolutely. Yes, just because there aren't little bodies in your home doesn't mean you're going out. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. So for a while, I would do the daily walk, the government prescribed daily walk. And I did that for months. And then I was like, do you know what? It's pissing down with rain. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put on some Netflix. And that's okay. And guess what? I put on some weight, and that's okay too. I bought some new clothes in a bigger size. It wasn't the end of the world.
You and your white jeans, I got blue jeans, bigger size. I don't think the world stopped spinning on its axis, darling, did it? And our jeans don't cut off our circulation. It's all
yes. Good. I was like, I could actually have some potatoes for dinner without feeling like I am literally cutting off the circulation to my legs.
Yes, and I'm not going to have those jeans keep calling me and reminding me of what I used to be. Whatever, I'll get back to that. But we've come through a lot. This is where we are right now. This is the present moment with Penelope. I love it, Maddy. You're doing incredible things. You really are. And I just, even if for the people who aren't members of your community, your followers, the message you're putting out there, it's just so lovely. It really is. Yeah.
Thank you.
So needed. Yeah. Fantastic. And your wisdom. More of that out there. We really do. Because I believe a lot of women don't even realise they're brushing with burnout.
No, they don't. They really don't.
Because we've both been there.
Yeah. So I do hope that if you are feeling, I would feel it sort of aches in my body, or just a really bad stomach, or just not really enjoying your food. Don't dismiss that. Please don't dismiss that, because, that does need to be addressed, and not at the bottom of the list, not after 5 loads of laundry, not after making dinner for everybody, not after you publish 10 more blog posts, not after all of that. Now, otherwise, say, for example, you want to publish 10 more blog posts before you start taking care of yourself, as an example. What if those blog posts got loads of clicks and then got loads of inquiries and bookings? How are you going to fulfill those if you're not feeling good? How are you going to show up for those people if you're not feeling good? It's not sustainable.
You published 10 blog posts, but now you're lying in bed feeling really unwell.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to be able to follow up. Yeah. I loved how this week you said, because I'm a big fan of your podcast. I love it. It's brilliant. I listen to it on my walks. It's fantastic. And I'd urge anyone to have a little listen, especially small business owners. But you said this week, there's no podcast this week because life. And you're the second person I saw that day who said, okay, guys, no podcast this week because life. Yeah. Amazing. It's putting ourselves first. It's not being married to these, tight restrictions that just, break us down and wear us down eventually.
Yeah, I really like to use the word permission a lot. permission to not be your best self, permission to post average content, permission to go off and do something else. You don't have to, like, there's no boss who's going to mark you down on your next performance review if you haven't published a podcast.
Yes.
And then because of that freedom I gave myself, just that small permission space, I just before I did this chat with you, I recorded my next podcast episode for next week. So I sent it off to my editor. She's going to, and so great.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't using the energy of the guilt and the shame of not showing up for myself as a reason to continue not to show up. Because that's also what I see. I get into a bit of a spin about, and I see a lot of other people do that. They're like, oh, so then the guilt sort of keeps them quiet, keeps them down. And again, thanks to the patriarchy, that is the reality of it.
I think you're absolutely right. It's the permission, you know, and it's just showing up to ourselves for the present moment, doing what we can and what's right for us. And that's going to be the long road.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And continuing to remind ourselves that it's okay. It's okay.
Absolutely okay. I mean, I think it was Tamu Thomas a few years ago, either in one of her newsletters or on her social media, and she said there's no point in being self-employed, freelancer, owning your small business, if you're actually going to be that tyrant boss to yourself.
Ooh, I like that.
Because I'm the worst boss to myself. Like, yeah, I thought that was really good. It's so true. It's so true.
Completely true. Completely. Yeah. And yet we do, because that's how we've been taught. Oh. We had the teachers bearing down on us, making us practice for exams that actually turns out didn't matter. No one's ever asked me what I did for A levels in a job world. And no one's ever asked to see my degree certificate.
Okay, no one's ever asked what you got. No.
Yeah. And then that's the thing. That's why a lot of people, again, in my sort of world, I see this happening a lot. People are accumulating the knowledge on how to do something without actually doing it, because they're cramming for an exam that they're not taking. The exam is hitting publish. The exam is showing up. You know, like that's, you know, and there's no way to say, oh yeah, well done, you got an A* for that. You know?
Yes, exactly. And I go as far, I mean, I've got two kids, two boys, 14 and 12. So I talk to them a lot about, you know, where you fit in the world and whatever. And, you know, I would go as far as to say it's how you make other people feel. It's how you lift them up. You know, don't worry about these little tiny results. I mean, I'm sure, Maddy, there are so many women who follow you on Instagram that you don't even know, you know, are not part of your community, who don't necessarily, you know, connect with you and DM you, but you are changing their perspective and approach to life. Like, I've gone goosebumpy. You know how we know that it's the people who, it's the tip of the iceberg, and those people that you're really kind of changing and helping.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, I call them the lurkers and the stalkers. And I love to sort of say, give your lurkers something to do. So like, this is why I often say, save this post. Whenever I say save this post, at the top and the bottom of my Instagram posts, people go nuts. They're like, absolutely, I can do that. You know, like anything else.
Gosh, yes.
It's really good.
Oh,
good. Yeah. No, it's great. I love it. But if you give people something to do, if you tell them what to do, click on this, do this, people will much more likely to do it. People are much more likely to do it than if you didn't say that. You know, like show people what you do, tell them about what you sell. You know, it's.
Maddy, I'm just thinking I've done that. Like, you've gone and I've saved them.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Well, you know what you're talking about, don't you?
I'm glad. Otherwise, phew.
Oh, fantastic. This has been incredible. I could spend all day talking to you.
Yeah.
What I have been doing is, at the end of the conversations I have with my guests, I've been asking them like light-hearted, kind of quick fire questions.
Oh, yeah.
If you're up for it, do you fancy
it?
Okay, everyone answers differently, and I love that. Okay, so on your dodgy, tough days, do you opt for lemon in water or lemon in gin?
I think we both know that it's lemon and gin.
Penelope, what's on your trolley? Okay, do you move your body or move the remote?
Move your body.
Okay,
Move your body.
yeah, get rid of that stress.
Yeah.
And then move the remote.
Yes, and then remove the remote.
Do both, yeah. Bag of almonds or bag of Maltesers?
Oh, neither. Bag of salt and vinegar crisps or onion rings, even though they make me feel dreadful afterwards. I love the taste of them.
Or do you still put them on your fingers like a kid?
Yeah, and then you just get orange dust, like some kind of drug addict. I remember when I went to New York many years ago, and I went out drinking, and I woke up the next day and I had bright orange fingers, and I was like, what on earth? And it was because I'd eaten all these crisps.
I can remember years ago, I went with my best friend Jane. We went to see Blondie at Shepherd's Bush. Okay, I was so excited. And we had quite a lot to drink. We had the best bloody time. We got on the tube, we were eating our Wotsits, and we were going back home, and I took loads of photos. And the next day I was like, oh my God, like literally Jane and I just had orange teeth all the way through. I was like, what happened there?
Oh, Flic, that's amazing.
Oh my God, happy memories.
Happy memories, absolutely.
Okay, so onion rings off the fingers, perfect.
Yeah.
Ask for help or happy to hermit?
Ooh, now isn't this a good one? I am now quite happy to hermit, but then my family WhatsApp chat, so sweet. Yeah. So I will now ask for help in there. And
good for you. It's hard.
Yeah, usually. Well, the thing is, it's because we feel like we are looking to be rescued and we're not. And that's, I don't like feeling vulnerable. No one does. So by reaching out there, usually I get some FaceTime with my niece or something. And, who can have a tough day after a 3-year-old tells you you're the best person in the world? Like, it's
so true. It's so true. Exactly. Oh, little scrummy thing. Cutie. Okay, lastly, what is the one self-care thing you're going to do today that your future self is going to thank you for?
Ooh, probably actually do a decent food shop rather than just pop to the corner shop to buy rubbish food.
Oh, I've got to do one of those on Monday. I keep putting it off. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think actually like go and probably have something to eat before I go. Otherwise, I'll just buy junk. The
onion rings will go in before the pineapple.
Like, they're only £1. It's fine. They're only £1.
I'll have 2.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Isn't it?
Oh, Maddy, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I think what you've shared today a lot is going to resonate with women, and certainly small business owners and, those freelancers like me who, we tend to have some overworking and overachieving tendencies.
Yeah.
So thank you for your wisdom.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much, Flic.
Oh, thank you for your time. And I will put in the show notes where everyone can find you and all your details, and also on my website.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Everyday Burnout Conversations. Please check the show notes for any links to items discussed today, and the original music and sound editing is by Chris Taylor. If you've enjoyed this podcast and have a spare few minutes, then it would be absolutely amazing if you could leave me a happy starry rating and review. It really does help this podcast reach a little further, and I'd just love it to land in the lap of those who, like me, last year are perhaps feeling isolated and lonely in their burnout struggle. Please note, this podcast is not intended as medical advice. Remember, you matter, so don't hesitate to reach out to your doctor or mental health professional for support if you're having a rough time. Wishing you a great week and take good care of yourself. Bye for now.